I want to take a second to talk a little bit about the assignment, which was Mod 4B, where we address the situation with the teacher who was dismissed in a vote of the board. And before I really get into some of the essential parts of the case, I do want to comment. I think I'd mentioned to you that this is one assignment that my last class didn't really do very well on it, and I found that you as a group did really well. There's a couple of you that I would be interested in hiring you to protect or defend Bull Pelini in some of his situations. But the case was an actual case in south central Nebraska. Some of you probably are familiar with it, and because they did not go into executive session, which a board is not required to do, although I think that in most cases it would be a good idea to go ahead and do the executive session or closed session. If I remember right, there was a motion, or was lack of a motion. I know there wasn't a second to go into executive session. Some of you really did a great job of citing other cases, and I think there were like 14 different cases that were cited by people who'd responded to each other and had really good arguments on both sides. And the perspective I wanted you to look at was, if this went to district court, what kinds of things would be a concern, or would they look at? And many of you talked a little bit about the fact that this had happened several times, and of course the attorneys supporting the teacher would cite that this was not part of the evaluation, or there was hearsay. And so both groups did really a fairly good job of supporting their side. The one issue that I would take with all of this, and there were, any one incident can be severe enough for a cancellation if it's really severe, or termination, of course, if it's a tenured teacher, or a non-renewal if it's a non-tenured teacher. The thing that he evidently had been cited, and disciplinary measures were put into his file. The area that there was quite a bit of disagreement between the two groups was whether or not there needed to be an improvement plan, whether it had been addressed. Just putting something in his file may not have been enough. The one weakness that I saw this whole thing was, evidently there were several things that occurred over the years, and I'm sure the rumor mill about him having a relationship with this student, even though she was out of school, probably grew and created more pressure on the administration and the board. But one of the things in your evaluation instrument, you're required to evaluate instructional performance, you're required to evaluate classroom organization management, and then the other two things, excuse me, the state law considers it one, but it really is two separate items. One is professional conduct, and the other is personal conduct. I think those could have been addressed in his final evaluation as they occurred, and that could be part of the improvement plan, that you're identifying that this is serious enough that it shouldn't happen again, and that you take those kinds of statements in their evaluation. I think would have helped this quite a bit. It sounded like maybe there was some neglect on part of administration addressing some of these earlier. And I think the really important thing, if you wanted to show a nexus to teaching, was where if I remember correctly, it said a student parent had made the statement, I don't want my student in that class. And I think one may not be enough, but if you have several people who are saying that because of the kinds of items that were addressed in the article, I think there's some support for saying that there is a nexus to the teaching. Anyway, overall, you did a great job. Most of you responded back, and I was just tickled with a couple of you kind of took the gloves off, and that's really what I think you have to do when you're looking at this type of situation. But there was a good interaction between most of you. A couple students didn't respond to the other side, and that I think should have been done, needs to be done. But overall, it was really a good activity, and hopefully this video works so that I don't have to type all this material up. So we'll try it later. Thank you.